Hello everyone and welcome to the World's Group Draw Show. The 2015 League of Legends World Championship is less than 3 weeks away, and today 16 teams will take the next step to the round in the Summoners Cup. I'm Evie Shoksdeportre here with Trevor Quickshot Henry, coming to you live from the Riot Studios as we find out who will face each other in the group stage.
That's right. Today the 16 squads who've already qualified for the World Championships will be drawn from 3 pools into one of 4 groups who will compete in the group stage in Paris in about 3 weeks' time. That draw will happen live right here, right now.
And as always, you can be part of the discussion as well by tweeting throughout the Group Draw Show. Join your fellow fans by using the hashtag Worlds so everyone can jump into the conversation.
Yes, definitely the case. There are 7 different regions from around the world being represented by the 16 teams at the World Championship. So let's take a look at exactly who they are.
Representing Europe's LCS, top-seeded Fnatic.
The reset forward, the Swedish AD carry gets a pentakill!
Europe's second seed, H2K.
Chaos Storm and a gravity stun. Has he outplayed Ryu?
And the third seed, Origin.
Now it's top laners on top laners. Look at the damage.
From China's LPL, the number 1 seed, LGD.
Gets the knock, rolls down, gets the kill, drinks out the time, gets his flow back. Oh my god!
Second seeded, Edward Gaming.
He's 1v3, picked up a kill, flashes to dodge the hook, Pod with the plays.
And the LPL's final entry, Invictus Gaming.
Shockwave onto rookie, dissonance is there. There's the inset, oh my god!
Representing Korea's LCK, top seeded, SK Telecom T1.
Bard actually on his own right now. That is a bit dangerous. Whoa! With a huge knock-up.
The LCK's second seed, the Coup Tigers. And rounding out Korea's participants, KT Rolster.
Nuclear getting very low, trying to get one to pick up a pentakill for Arrow.
Second of the seed.
Second one.
Coming out of the North American LCS is the number 1 seed, Counter Logic Gaming.
It's a triple for Double Lip. He's looking for Bjergsen. That's a Double Lip pentakill.
The second seeded Team Solo Mid.
Not the one they want, but it is the one that they want. Santorin heads in with the Jarvan Quattro Cataclysm.
And North America's third seed, Cloud9.
Impacts the next one. That's a huge fight. A quadra for Sneaky.
From Taiwan's LMS, top seeded AHQ. And their second seed, the Flash Wolves.
给点面牛这边是利用自己的水银是哇，要以后 kill.
And representing the international wildcard teams from the GPL, the Bangkok Titans.
He's round the side, the 4-man Sejuani ultimate.
And coming out of Brazil's CB LOL, Pain Gaming.
Não, vai ser Ace! E o Ace da frente!
These are your 2015 World Championship teams.
Fantastic. Those are our 16 teams, and as we get ready to begin the draw, here's a quick breakdown of how the teams are drawn into those groups. The 4 groups A, B, C, and D will be assembled from 3 pools. Pool number 1 contains the number 1 seeds from North America, Europe, China, and Korea.
Pool number 2 consists of the first and second seeds from the LMS, the second and third seeds from both China and Korea, and the second seeds from North America and Europe. And finally, pool number 3 is made up of the 2 international wildcard teams and the third seeds from the North American and European LCS.
Now, let's take a look at how the group draw will happen. The names and logos of the 16 qualified teams have been printed out and placed into capsules.
Now, those capsules have then been placed into one of the 3 bowls atop the pedestals on screen now, based on their respective pools.
And we also have 3 legendary players with us today who will help us out in selecting those groups. Each one of them has previously attended and played in the World Championship, and we're very honored to have them with us.
Yes, we certainly are. First and foremost, we have the former mid laner for the 2012 World Championship second place team, Azubu Frost's Rapid Star.
Always bringing the swag. And then joining us from the European LCS is a mid laner for Elements, Fragen. He competed at the World Championship with CLG EU back in Season 2 and again with Alliance in 2014.
And rounding out our trio of mid laners is a player who was on the stage at the World Championships in 2013 and 2014. It's OMG's Cool. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Now we're going to take a look at the rules of the group draw. First, no group can have more than one team from the same region. Next, each group must have exactly one team from Pool 1, 2 teams from Pool 2, and 1 team from Pool 3.
Yeah, and finally, when a team is drawn, they must be placed into the next available group, so long as that would not render the draw invalid either now or at any future point by preventing another seed from being placed into a valid position. For a deeper look into these rules, head over to worlds.lolesports.com, where you can find a group draw guide under the Articles tab. It will outline all of the black and white details, and you can follow along with us today.
So we have our guests, we have the rules, we know how everything is going to work. We're going to go ahead and start the 2015 World Championship group draw. We'll begin drawing with Pool 1, and here are the 4 teams in that pool. From Korea's LCK, the Spring and Summer Split champions SK Telecom T1. From China's LPL, the Summer Split champions LGD Gaming.
From the North American LCS, the Summer Split champions Counter Logic Gaming. And from the European LCS, the Spring and Summer Split champions Fnatic. Now, Rapid Star will be taking his place next to pool number 1, where he will be helping us draw from these 4 teams.
Now for each selection, Rapid Star will draw a capsule from the bowl, open it, and then reveal that team, and it will be placed into a group. Then the draw will continue. So I guess we should kick it off. Rapid Star, go ahead, draw our very first team for the group draw.
And the very first team drawn for the 2015 World Championship is North America's #1 seed, Counter Logic Gaming. They will comfortably sit atop Group A.
First group drawn, and the first seed coming out of the North American LCS is Counter Logic Gaming. The faithful have been rewarded so far. It is the very first time that CLG attends Worlds in 3 years, and this time it is as the #1 seed. They had a fantastic undefeated run in the playoffs, and to top it all off, a fantastic victory over Team Solomid, 3-0 in Madison Square Garden. Well, for CLG, they have achieved it all so far this split in NA. We're going to have to see what they can do internationally.
Exceptional performance, and so good to see CLG back at the World Championship after a long hiatus. 3 teams left in Pool 1 to draw.
Well, we kicked it all off. Let's continue. Rapid Star, go ahead.
Well, it seems the LCS regions were wanting to get out of that bowl very quickly. Fnatic, the #1 seed from Europe, will sit atop Group B.
Fnatic atop of Group B, the Season 1 World Champions, returning to the World Championships once again. And while the organization has done so good in the history of League of Legends, and this season they have absolutely dominated Europe. They were the Spring Split champions, and they had a 21-0 winning streak before getting beaten by Origin, but they didn't lose the finals. They even got that over in Stockholm. At the beginning of the season, it was 4 rookies and Yellowstar. Yellowstar now in his 5th World Championship. We're going to have to see what they can do. The hope of Europe is on their shoulders.
It certainly is. Half of the pool has been drawn. It means China and Korea is left to draw. LGD and SKT.
Number 3, let's go Rapid Start.
And SK Telecom has been drawn. They will slot into Group C.
SK Telecom, the #1 seed coming out of the Korean LCK, and the Season 3 World Champion, returning to the big stage after failing to qualify in 2014. Well, their season has been extremely dominant. They won the Spring Split, and they went on a 14-series win streak in the Summer Split. Yes, that is 14 best-of-3s won in a row, and they 3-0'd in the Summer Final. 1 blemish on their record for this year at MSI, losing to EDG. That will sting, and I think they're really going to want to prove that they're better than that at the international stage.
They certainly will. They are comfortably in Group C. We followed from west to east as far as the map is concerned, and I think we need to formalize where LGD goes.
We need to. So let's finalize it. Go ahead, Rapid Star.
And the final #1 regional seed from the LPL, LGD Gaming, in Group D.
LGD, the first seed coming out of China's LPL, getting here on the World Championship on most circuit points, and of course, most recently winning the summer final in the LPL. It will be the first World Championship for LGD as an organization, but they have a wealth of experience on their lineup. Not in the least in their exuberant 80 carry Imp, who is of course the returning world champion, but he's long not the only star on that team. They also have their captain PYL Godv in the mid lane, who has done fantastically. Very excited to see this team and very excited to see who will join them in the groups.
Yes, certainly the case. And of course, with that, it means Pool 1 teams have officially been drawn and placed into each of the respective 4 groups. I think it's time to move on to pool number 2.
Yes, and this pool consists of 8 teams, and each group will receive 2 teams from the pool. First, we have LMS's Spring and Summer Split champions, AHQ Esports, and also from the LMS, the Flash Wolves. Joining SKT from Korea, the Crew Tigers, along with the third LCK team, KT Rolster.
Yeah, the second half of this group starts with the second team from China. It's Edward Gaming, along with the third LPL team, Invictus Gaming. From the North American LCS, we have Team Solo Mid, and rounding out Pool 2 from the European LCS is H2K Gaming. Now, the teams in Pool 2 will be drawn by Froggen, so if you can please take your position next to Pool number 2.
He's on his way, and we're going to get Pool 2 underway. So Froggen, go ahead and draw the first one.
And we are starting Pool 2 with an LMS seed. It is the Flash Wolves, who will be joining Counter Logic Gaming in Group A.
CLG and the Flash Wolves so far. Flash Wolves are the second seed coming out of the LMS after running through the regional qualifier. And 4 out of their 5 members you might recognize because they attended the Season 3 World Championship as the Gamania Bears. They were very dominant in LMS Spring, only falling to AHQ in the finals. Lackluster in the playoffs, knocked out by Hong Kong Esports, but they made it all up. They ran the gauntlet and they made it to Worlds, and so far in a group with CLG.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they have something to prove on the international stage. There's 7 teams left to draw from several regions, and we'll see how the cookie crumbles.
A lot left to go. Froggen, go ahead and draw that next one.
We have drawn Invictus Gaming from the LPL. Fnatic knows its first opponent in Group B.
Yes, it does, and it is Invictus Gaming, the third seed coming out of the Chinese LPL. They qualified via the Gauntlet, and it will be the second appearance at the World Championship for IG as an organization. And Zizitai and Kid will be returning. And if you remember correctly, back in 2012, IG lost a quarterfinal to Moscow 5 back then, but it's a totally different ballgame now. They are the third seed coming out of China's LPL, but from a region so stacked and so much talent, they could be the first seed just as well.
Certainly the case. China is definitely one of the stronger regions at this year's World Championship. Both Korean squads are still available for selection, so if one of them is drawn in Group C, they will bounce to Group D.
We'll see if that happens right now. Froggen, do your thing.
And the championship point second seed regional qualifier from the European LCS is H2K Gaming. Oof. They slot into Group C with SK Telecom.
Wow, H2K, the second seed coming out of Europe in a group with SK Telecom straight off the bat. Second seed, it is their very first World Championship for the organization, and of course the first World Championship for their mid laner, Ryu. They got here on championship points. They ended up third in both the spring split and the summer split. And of course, they had that fantastic run in spring after the joining of Kasing and the big Kasing effect. Although at the end of the season in summer, the European teams seem to have figured them out for a big portion. So we'll have to see what kind of new plans they show up with. And they're going to have to be good because they're up against SKT for sure in one of their games.
A difficult start to the World Championships if you are H2K. But if you're going to go home or go big, why not start in the group stages? 6 teams left, and this is, of course, 2 seeds from Korea still in the pool, North American LCS, China, and LMS.
Let's see which one comes out now. Froggen, go ahead.
KT Rolster has been drawn from the LCK, and they will slot into Group D with LGD Gaming from China.
Shaping up to be a very interesting group as well, with KT Rolster, the third seed coming out of the Korean LCK. And while I guess it's safe to say finally making it to the World Championship for KT, this is a team in the season that was figuring themselves out when it came to spring, but were absolutely revitalized in the summer with Peekaboo. They ended up having to run the gauntlet, beating out Najin and CJ Entis to make it to the World Championship, and now drawn into the group with LGD. That'll be exciting.
We've already got a bunch of regional matchups, and of course we're halfway through the group draw. So just a friendly reminder, no group can have more than one team from the same region, as we have 4 more group draws still to take place from Pool 2. If those scenarios could happen, we will have to bounce teams down the line.
We will see if that happens, but we're going to continue to draw for now from Pool 2. Froggen, please select the 5th team.
And as AHQ has been drawn, it is the number 1 seed from LMS. You can see they will not join the Flash Wolves in Group A, so they will bounce to Group B, where they will join Invictus Gaming and Fnatic.
Also shaping up to be a very strong group. AHQ, the first seed coming out of the LMS, the second consecutive World Championship for this team. They nearly made it out of groups last year. Remember that tiebreaker versus EDG? Well, when it comes to their season, they had Fnatic and SKT levels of domination, winning both spring and summer, and they haven't lost a single best of 2 in the summer season. Of course, in that mid lane, someone we know very well, Westor, coming to the world stage once again.
Arguably one of the most famous mid laners around the world, and he's going to go up against the man who killed FLICKR from Fnatic. 3 teams left from Korea, China, and North America. And a reminder, they cannot be in the same group as one of their regional teams.
Let's find out what the next one is, Froggen.
Now, we have drafted Team Solo Mid, and due to the rules of 1 team per region per group, they will in fact bounce down to Group D. This is to ensure that not only is this draw valid, but so are future draws. So Team Solo Mid will face off against LGD Gaming and KT Rolster.
Well, TSM finding themselves in Group D, the second seed coming out of North America, second seed on circuit points, especially thankful to their, well, great performance in the spring split, but they fell on hard times after the mid-season invitational. Their worst finish ever in the regular split, 5th in summer. They did manage to fight their way through the playoffs, get the finals, and get to the World Championship on those championship points. However, TSM still 5 times in attendance in the World Championship. Dyrus in that top lane 5th time. You can never count them out, but this is a difficult group.
It's an incredibly difficult group, but this is a team that has showed up when the pressure has been put on. There are 2 teams left, the KOO Tigers and EDG. We have the makings of some potential juicy groups.
Yeah, let's hope it happens. Froggen, go ahead and draw that 7th team for us.
We have drawn Edward Gaming, EDG. Now, because a Korean team is still left in the pool, it means they cannot go into Group C, which is where EDG will be placed against SK Telecom and H2K.
Well, EDG, the second seed coming out of the LPL, and in a group with SK Telecom. We all remember what happened at the mid-season invitational, and that is not the only thing EDG won this year. They also won 2 Damasha Cups, the Spring Split, and as said, MSI. However, the summer playoffs weren't their best, showing they had to run through the regional qualifier and get that second seed into Worlds, and they have Pawn in that mid lane, returning a champion for that lineup, and well, we'll have to see if they can repeat what they did at MSI on the international stage.
I cannot wait. A repeat of the last international event between these top tier teams is going to be fantastic. 1 Korean seed is left remaining, and they will be joining Counterlogic and Flash Wolves.
And now it's time to officialize everything in this pool too, so Froggen, go ahead and draw that last team.
The final team from the Korean region, LCK, is going to slot into Group A, and that will complete all of Pool 2's draws.
CLG, the Flash Wolves, and the KOO Tigers, the second seed from Korea's LCK. It will be the very first appearance at Worlds for the organization of KOO Tigers, and you remember they burst onto the scene in 2015 season as the GE Tigers, very dominant at the beginning of the spring split. But honestly, after IEM Katowice falling behind and had to find themselves, they did in the summer split. They got their hands on an 8-game winning streak and ended up qualifying for the World Championship on circuit points. Flash Wolves and CLG in there, I think they might be be carefully joyous about that group so far.
Definitely a good case if you are a Coup Tigers fan or supporter. With that, we've now drawn all of the Pool 2 teams, and they've been placed into each of the 4 respective groups.
Now we're going to take a look at the teams in Pool 3 from the North American LCS Cloud9 and from the European LCS Origin.
And then, of course, we have the 2 international wildcard teams who won their respective IWC qualifiers. First up from the GPL, we have the Bangkok Titans, and from CBLOL, we have the Brazilian champions of Pain Gaming. These are the 4 teams in Pool 3.
And to help us out, Cool will be drawing the teams for Pool 3, so please take your place.
Of course, as we get to the draw for Pool 3, a reminder that the regional teams cannot be in the same pool. 1 North American seed, 1 European seed, and 2 international wildcards.
We will see what happens. Very exciting, the conclusion. Cool, go ahead and draw that first one.
And the first team that we have drawn is an international wildcard region in Pain Gaming. They complete Group A, where they join Coup Tigers, Flash Wolves, and CLG as your first completed World Championship group.
Pain Gaming, the Brazilian powerhouse, qualified for the World Championships through the International Wildcard Qualifier in Chile. Well, they tried to qualify for the World Championship a couple of times before. Finally, they've made it, and they absolutely crushed it in the Desafio Internacional. And of course, 2 iconic players you see on your screen there as well, Kami and BRTT in that group. Very exciting. And BRTT versus Doublelift. Can't wait to see that.
Going to be exceptional. Played on the same server before. There's going to be some rivalry. As we've said, 1 more international wildcard, NA and EU. And then we're done for the group stage.
We're getting closer. Cool, go ahead and please pick the second team from Pool 3.
It is Origin, and as we've explained already, due to the regional rules of 1 team per group per region, Origin will be bouncing down to Group D, where they will round out this group with Team Solomid, KT Rolster, and LGD.
Well, it hasn't concluded yet, but this looks like an incredibly strong group, and Origin finds himself in Group D, the 3rd seed coming out of Europe. They were just a challenger team in the spring split, but they're a little bit of a special one, of course. They have 4 out of the 5 members who've been to the World Championship once or multiple times, so we'll see what they can bring together with their rookie 80 carry Niels. When it comes to the season or the summer split, they didn't beat Fnatic, but they did give them their very first losses of the season. It'll be very exciting to see what they can do if that experience can all come together and carry the team to a new level, because they are going to need it.
This is a team that's grown from Challenger now to World Championship, and they're going to have to continue growing to play with the big boys. Bangkok Titans and Cloud9, the last 2 teams before we complete our groups.
Cool, go ahead and pull that 3rd team out of Pool 3.
And of course, it is Cloud9, the 3rd seed from the North American LCS, and they will slot into Group B, where they will join Fnatic, Invictus Gaming, and AHQ.
Well, Cloud9, the 3rd seed coming out of North America. It is their 3rd consecutive World Championship. It was by far the hardest road to get there this year. They had their worst placement ever in the regular split, where they ended up 7th. And well, they had a miraculous run through the gauntlet, 2 reverse sweeps, and in the end, beating out Team Liquid. I think it's safe to say it wasn't pretty, but Cloud9 made it to the World Championship. Very interesting group for them. And oh, that Fnatic Cloud9 matchup. I don't want to remind the Americans of it, but at the Season 3 World Championship, that wasn't pretty either.
There is a World Championship history, and hopefully new stories can be made this year. There's only 1 last team. It is the Bangkok Titans.
Well, let's finalize the draw. Cool, make it official.
And with Bangkok Titans being pulled from the capsule that will complete Group C, SK Telecom, H2K, EDG, and now Bangkok Titans.
The Bangkok Titans also getting to the World Championship through the International Wildcard Qualifier in Turkey. They're a team from the GPL. It will be their very first appearance at the World Championship, and also the very first appearance of a team of Thailand ever at Worlds. At the IWC, they struggled in the group stages, but did a fantastic comeback and beat the Chiefs in the end in the final to make it here. They're led by their star player G4 in the mid lane. They were an underdog, honestly, before the draw began, and with EDG SK Telecom and H2K, they are very much an underdog in that group.
It's going to be a difficult one, but maybe that's how they can surprise everybody. So that concludes Pool 3, and all of the teams have been placed into their respective groups.
Now we're going to recap all of the teams and the groups they were drawn into. First up, here are the teams in Group A. Counterlogic Gaming, the Flash Wolves, the Coup Tigers, and Pain Gaming.
And next we have the 4 teams in Group B. It is Fnatic, Invictus Gaming, AHQ Esports, and Cloud9.
And here are the Group C teams: SK Telecom, H2K, Edward Gaming, and the Bangkok Titans.
And finally, we have Group D with LGD Gaming, KT Rolster, Team Solo Mid, and Origin. Those are the groups for Worlds, and we will be breaking things down with an in-depth look and analysis in just a few minutes.
Well, the stage is now set for 2015 League of Legends World Championship to begin. Things will start with a special Worlds episode of Primetime League from Paris, France on Wednesday, September 30th at 12 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central European Summer Time.
Yeah, and you can catch the very first game of Worlds as the group stage kicks off the next day. It is October 1st, coming to you live from Le Doc Pullman in Paris. There are still a few seats available and remaining for the group stage. To find out how you can get those tickets, head over to lolesports.com/tickets.
And after Paris, the quarterfinals will begin in London on October 15th, followed by the semifinals in Brussels on October 24th. Everything will lead up to the 2015 World Championship, where 2 teams will fight for the Summoners Cup on October 31st in Berlin. That's it. That wraps up the group draw for this portion, at least. And of course, we'd like to extend a special thank you for the guys that have been helping us out, Cool Frog and Rapid Star.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. We will be having a discussion with some expert analysts in a few minutes' time. And as we get ourselves set up, let's take another look at the 2015 World Championship competitors. I want to ask everybody watching at home and around the world, what do you guys think of the groups A, B, C, and D? Which one do you think is the group of death? And which matchups are you most looking forward to? Let us know on Twitter by sending your votes and suggestions and thoughts to @LOLEsports. Use that hashtag Worlds. I'm personally looking forward to SKT and EDG, another rematch from MSI. And I'm very interested to see who's going to make it out of Group B. Will Fnatic continue their strong run or not? There's a whole lot of questions that will be found out later on in the month. For now, though, we are going to hand things over to Shox and her analysts to take a look at the 2015 World Championship groups.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Well, it's time to discuss and meet our experts from the North American LCS. We have Joshua Jat Leesman, along with my esteemed colleague from the European LCS, Martin de Fischerling. You're all esteemed, don't worry. And from the Oceanic Pro League, as well as the English language LPL broadcast, Jake Spawn Tiberi. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. And the stressful part is over. Now we get to discuss about everything, and we're going to start with Group A, CLG, the Flash Wolves, the Coup Tigers, and Pain Gaming. I feel like there's a clear favorite in this one, but I'd love to get your opinion.
CLG got so lucky with this group. The number of teams that could have been in this group that could have crushed what most people see as CLG is astounding. And the most interesting thing about this group actually is that Pain is in this, and I see them as having a chance of picking up multiple games within this group if they play well.
Yeah, I think there are 2 very underrated teams in this group, Yowie Flash Wolves as well. LMS is looking stronger and stronger as a region, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them really challenge CLG and Pain Gaming, of course, for that second spot. But Coup Tigers, to me, is the clear favorite. Yet, they haven't been strong enough to say that this is an unbeatable Korean team. There is definitely room for them to make mistakes.
So this is a thing that I actually don't think there is a clear favourite in this group. Sure, Coup should be able to take that spot, but after their international performance, we can't say for sure. So definitely want to take a look at how Pain are going to perform because, you know, with Kami in the mid lane, with BRTT, there's certainly a chance that they can at least make waves and impact how the group turns out.
There are so many unknowns in this group stage. Like, the fact that the last time we saw Coup internationally, they were the GE Tigers, and they flailed out of IEM Katowice. Yowie Flash Wolves, they were also there, but they actually collapsed at the end of their regular season. Otherwise, we were expecting to see Yowie at MSI, but they got crushed by HQ, never really returned to that form. And even Pain Gaming are a bit of an unknown because they weren't a strong regular season team. It was INTZ that was #1 in Brazil the entirety of the regular season, and then they made an amazing run in the playoffs. We really don't know what any of these teams are going to bring, and I agree with Jake right there. This is actually a pretty wide open group with Coup as a favorite.
Yeah, Coup is the favorite for sure. Yowie Flash Wolves, I want to see what Mabel can do in the mid lane. Really the star player on the team. Kami, you mentioned him from Pain. So we get some good mid lane matchups. Poe Builder and Kuro, more the safe laners, we can say, not the main carries on their team. we're going to look elsewhere for that top lane matchup, Zion Spartan versus Smeb. It's going to be very interesting to see this group, and I like the fact that it is so open in many ways.
What I think is quite interesting, the first thing that you said was CLG got lucky.
Yeah.
You don't have that much
So,
faith in them, it seems.
let's be fair. They had an unlucky blow. They had that announcement that Huhi is going to be their jungler heading into Worlds. That's probably going to be the case. So they're going to have to recover with that. I mean, yeah, he has been practicing with the team for 4 months plus, and they say it's going very well in the jungle. They said their scrims are at the level or greater than they were heading into the North American playoffs.
And this is the strongest we've seen a CLG lineup in a very long time. They seem to be very together as a team finally, very much settling into what always should have been a great bottom lane, but now is exerting a lot of dominance. So I think that they certainly do have a chance to get out. You're just never so sure with the CLG team.
It's the entire group. Again, you're not 100% sure. I saw Double F was talking about how they've been scrimming Fnatic, and Fnatic were really good compared to CLG, at least that's what he said. So that makes me a little bit worried for the scrims. I do feel like CLG has to be better than that, but we need to see what they can do in the groups. I'm expecting them to take it out as well.
Yeah, I mean, consistency in the bot lane as well. Doublelish from Nafamu might be the strongest bottom lane in this group. Yeah. There's a lot of inconsistency with the Flash Wolves bottom lane. They actually were starting Kramer, this Korean AD carry, for a large portion of the season, but they went back to NL, who played Tier Varus in the bottom lane, and just basically a solo lane player.
Genji played Tier Varus.
Yeah,
careful.
Never
clearly have a future, and it's a
careful
build. It's not necessarily your standard build. Sneaky played like a Manamune Varus. It's not what you're going to be going up against a Doublelish from Nafamu with, that's for sure.
And that's why I think Flash Wolves are going to rely so much on Maple. One of the reasons they dropped off after being like the best team in spring, as you mentioned, and didn't make MSI was because the patch changed, Cinderhulk came in, their assassins kind of got nerfed and he couldn't carry anymore. They need him to step up if they want to get out of this group again, because you cannot trust in Stake in the top lane, and I wouldn't trust in the bottom lane.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You can say that they can trust in Maple, but when you got Stake in the top lane, who is like one of the important members in a shot caller and a leadership group style, but going up against people like Smeb, like Zion Spartan, that is going to be a very hard battle for them.
That's quite an interesting stylistic difference as well, because Zion Spartan, we know, likes to step up and carry for that team as well. If we look at individual performances beyond that, what of these could tip the scales? You mentioned Maple in the mid lane, we mentioned Aframu and Doublelift, what else?
I mean, Smeb is a huge player for the KOO Tigers right here. He had a little bit, in my opinion, of a falling off in the summer split, but came back strong once the carry top laner started to come back. Riven Pentakill was absolutely huge for him on that side. And going up against Stake, he can match Zion Spartan. And honestly, against Mylon, even though he is a good player, I don't think he's a match for Smeb.
No, and I think also KOO Tigers, at the end of the split, or the season for them, they found, compositions with like Malphite and Ashe, heavy engaged comps that worked really well for them. So I feel like they've been looking stronger. And even though it's a Korean team, a lot of teams will underrate them and say, we haven't seen too much because then they were bad, then they were good, so they're very streaky in their performance. I think they look good by the end. I think they'll take that into this group as well. And that's why they are my favorites, even though, as you guys said, it's not 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, I definitely think that KOO is the strongest team on record coming into this, but want to touch on Pain again. The way that they were able to pull together the IWC tournament, they were completely swept the final. They made KLG, who are quite a good IWC team, look bad. I think that, for me, Flash Wolves and Pain are going to be huge wildcards in this group. We kind of know what we're going to get out of CLG. We kind of think we know what we're going to get out of KOO. The other two teams could really do anything, especially with the break.
Yeah, and I think Pain, just for the record, is the strongest wildcard region to ever be in a World Championship. INTZ, the team that they played against in the Brazilian Championship, scrimmed in North America to boot camp beforehand and said they did well against top North American teams, and they got 3-0'd by Pain in that final. So they're probably going to be bringing it to this World Championship.
You have Kami in the mid lane. That guy is a beast. And Pain Gaming and Brazil as a region is getting better and better and better. This might not be the year for them, but they couldn't hope for almost a better group to be in. But then we're going to see them keep improving towards next year. And I'm very excited to see what they can do, because I don't feel like Bangkok Titans is even close in level.
Well, you mentioned leveling up of the region. Same thing goes from LMS, but will the second seeded with the Flash Wolves be enough in a group like this?
I believe Flash Wolves can surprise a lot of people. I don't think it's enough to beat out CLG over 2 games and take second seed in this group here. And I think that's going to be the problem for them. I'm not 100% sure they've found the right meta for them yet. Because again, we saw how good they were at first, but then with the Assassins gone and so on, Maple couldn't carry. It wasn't enough for Flash Wolves. And I feel like some of the other members are too weak compared to what CLG is bringing in the top lane, and Doublelift, of course, with Aframu in the bottom lane.
So as a conclusion to this group, it's pretty clear for all of you. KOO first, CLG second. Does that go for all of you?
Those are probably my predictions here.
That's a safe
Everyone
one.
was saying North America wasn't going to make it out of groups. Those were the predictions. I mean, Meeting expectations would have been no North American teams out of groups, but I think they got a favorable draw here, and there's a real chance that they can make it out of groups. Let's not forget, last Worlds, 2 North American teams made it out of groups. Nobody from the LMS regions, nobody from Europe.
Clean slate.
Boom happened.
Clean slate, but I think this is a chance they can get out of groups.
The free show.
I mean, KOO Tigers and CLG, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Flash Wolves take the second seed over CLG.
Yeah, and after that speech, I'm just going for the IWC region, you know, KOO and Fade in there, because now I don't want CLG out. But I think CLG realistically will make the second seed.
All right, we'll see what happens. And we heard what our experts say. Now let's see what you guys have been saying on Twitter. From @RustyLol says, CLG just got the legitimate dream group. Well, that is echoing what you guys said already. Well, if we look at the other configurations,
you could have taken out KOO and put in H2K, and that would have been the legitimate dream cube.
I tend to agree.
Bangkok Titans, but
No,
that
I
would have
tend to agree.
That would have been a little bit too good.
Well, our second tweet is from @MrCleverFox. The Fnatic group is going to be fun to watch. They should make it out of there, and that brings us directly into Group B. Let's take a look. Fnatic, Invictus
How are
Gaming,
Fnatic
HQ,
chances?
and Cloud9.
So,
no problem.
I said before we went live here, if Fnatic didn't get a group where I could say they would get the first seed, I wouldn't say a word. They can get first seed in this one, for sure. IG
Fnatic?
is a fantastic team. IG is a fantastic team. However, very high highs, very low lows. If they do not perform, Fnatic will take them out.
But they're coming in on a high. You can't just disregard the fall.
Hey, patch changes coming in. You know, maybe Kakao has a bad day. Maybe Rookie dies.
Well, let's talk about
like
the patch
Faker
changes. So the patch changes that we've seen so far just completely suit the IG lineup to a T.
Which is the problem.
So they've got a very big carry style top laner, Inzatai up there. He likes to pick up the Riven, likes to pick up the likes of Fiora, and has shown time and time again that he's able to dominate the best top laners in the world. This is a guy that only has swapped for 1 split. He's only just getting into any form. I think that in this group especially, IG has got to be the favorite.
Yeah, and I think this is just a wicked hard group. This is one of the worst groups for Fnatic to get drawn into, because Fnatic is great from a European perspective. But I think IG, in my rankings, is the 4th best team going to Worlds. So they're an incredibly strong team to be drawn in from this pool. And then AHQ, they lost more games to EDG at MSI than they did the entire summer split plus playoffs. So obviously the LMS region, once you get past the top tier, does weaken off. But the same can be said of the European region. These guys are actually very threatening, and they are a little bit of a wild card in the sense that we don't really know. They've never made it out of groups at a World Championship. But going up against IG, what I think the 4th best team at Worlds is, this is just a killer group. And we haven't even touched on Cloud9.
Yeah.
No, sure, but just to go back to your HQ point, even your IG
You don't even want to talk about Cloud9.
The worst thing is, again, I want to say Fnatic can take number 1 in this. I believe they can. However, I believe the 2 teams they're facing matched really well against Fnatic. AHQ is all about fighting early on. Loads of fights going on, very aggressive playstyle. Fnatic back in Europe looked very shaky in the early game. They have had times where they fell really far behind. They didn't want to match these fights here because it was too high risk. HQ doesn't care about risk. They will go for that fight. IG is the same deal with Rookie, with Kakao, and also because Kakao versus Reignover is a very, very one-sided match in favor of Kakao. So it makes me very sad to say that these teams match up well against Fnatic, but I still think on a good day, if IG does not perform, which can happen, it has happened before loads of times, Fnatic can take first.
I love that you touch on the junglers as well, in this group specifically, and Cloud9, which we haven't touched on yet, playing with High. Fantastic run through the gauntlet. I mean, nobody can deny that, but the question is, how big of a level is that actually when we come to the international stage in here, especially in that jungle?
I'm so worried for Cloud9.
Yeah, I'm really worried. I think it's great for Cloud9 that they have a shot caller back on the Rift and that they've sorted out those problems, but when you go up against junglers like Kakao, they're able to just be so aggressive and in your face. Cloud9, they're definitely going to have a run. They've got a very solid bottom lane, AD carry especially. I think Sneaky's a great player still, but the rest of the lineup is just going to be hard.
I am terrified for Balls to go up against the top laners in this group. Zatai, Huni, and Ziv are 3 of the best top laners at Worlds, and Balls in Korean solo queue has played more games than all the other people boot camping, and he was actually in Diamond 1 and fell to Diamond 2. So he's been putting in the practice to try and get better, but he is not on their level, not even close right now.
Let me ask you this. Balls, now recently, maybe not on their level, but in his top form, as we've seen him before, and with his champion pool, the way he likes to play, how does he match up then?
A year and a half ago, I think he can match up. I think he can neutralize a lot of the aggressive players with his tank play, but that's not the game we're playing right now.
A year and a half ago, Zatai was a mid laner. So I don't think it really matters.
A year and a half ago.
It really is a problem for Cloud9, how they don't have any role where we can specifically say, okay, this guy can beat the other mid laner. So this guy can beat the other AD carries. They have some very strong players across, and from AHQ is one of the big carries in their team. Obviously, Kid and Kitties are not the strong point of IG, so maybe their Cloud9 can match them pretty well. But it's not in the laning phase, they win the bottom lane. It's more sneaky on his own really in these team fights.
Well, that's what I actually wanted to point out about AHQ, is that the bottom lane is a part of the map that against all these teams, I feel like they can actually push something. Even Fnatic's bottom lane, whilst great, is more known for its passive and being able to negotiate the map a little bit more. So I think that AHQ may be able to get a certain amount of an advantage out of that bottom lane.
And it's not a 2v2 in the bottom lane for AHQ. Ziv is going to be there. Mountain is coming down to gank as well. Like, there are multiple people. They're going to roam from mid lane with Westor. He's so good at timing the roams. That bot lane, if you play too aggressive, you will die. And that's how HQ likes to snowball games into Dragon, and that's how they win games.
Let's see how much can be snowballed from the mid lane. You mentioned Wester, who of course the focal point on that AHQ lineup. Now, Febivin, rookie, Incarnation, who did step up very much so in the gauntlet. How are all those matchups going to go? How determining are they going to be for this group?
Rookie is...
We're really going to see how good Rookie is.
Rookie is one of the best laning mid laners in the LPL. So outside of the laning phase, sometimes he makes some mistakes in team fights. But as far as it goes in 1v1 lanes or the 2v2 when he pulls Kakao in, he is super impressive on all kinds of champions. He plays Echo, he plays Victor, the Azir. He's just overall such a solid laning phase champion. And he has a Yasuo, so you have to respect the double wall comp out of IG every time.
Rookie is definitely going to be the best mid laner if you look at it. But Febivin is a guy who's shown he can match the level of whoever he's playing against.
Hey, he solo killed Faker.
He solo killed Faker. And Westor, it's kind of funny, he gets all the hype. However, Westor is not the guy who wins the early game for HQ.
He loses the lane.
He loses the lane, okay.
It's because he's roaming down other lanes.
He's good at roaming, he's good in the team fight. So he will probably get crushed by like Rookie and so on in the lane.
Well, we'll see what happens. So can I get your predictions? Although I think it's pretty clear if I'm listening to you.
I don't know how clear this is. Like, it's actually crazy that the group that didn't draw a Korean team is this competitive and strong. I think a lot of this has to go to the growth in the LMS region and how much stronger China has gotten. I want to say IG tops the group, and Fnatic probably edges out AHQ for the second.
Come on, Officio.
Fnatic tops the group, IG takes second, but it's going to be extremely close games between both Fnatic, IG, and of course HQ.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cloud9.
And for this one, I think that IG will come out on top. And from what I've heard about AHQ, they scrimmed against EDG, things like that. I think that they can come second.
All right, so IG clear-cut favorites in Fnatic. We'll make it, but it's going to be close if I'm listening to you correctly.
They'll make it.
For
They'll make it.
You didn't call them number one. They're not that clear-cut.
No. Fnatic will make it.
All right.
Don't worry.
We will see. For some perspective on the group draw from the other side of the rift, Riv is standing by with Europe's Fragen.
Thank you very much, Shocks. Now, as we give everybody a little time to digest groups A and B and listen to figure out all the information that you guys were talking about, I am here with Fragen from the European LCS, who helped us draw out the groups from the Pool 2. So you had all 8. You tweeted earlier. You gave CLG a little hope. So I'm sure the fans there are quite happy about it. You yourself were in a very similar position just a year ago. And I want to ask you, what, as a team, what is the anticipation like getting ready to be placed? Are you just kind of hoping for the easy picks?
It's actually kind of nerve-wracking because if you think about it, if you just get the easy picks, then you don't really get tested going in. Like if you advance from groups, you don't really get actually tested, right? So you want a mix of between like you want to get tested, but you also want to make sure that you can make it through. So it's kind of nerve-wracking, but in the end, you still have to win against the best teams. Like if you want to keep advancing, you need to keep winning. So it really doesn't really matter too much who you're going to get matched up against.
So it's just kind of the anticipation of being placed. Now, looking at the way things panned out, do you think anybody kind of got an easy ride through groups?
It's hard to say. Like Group A, I really think anyone of like outside of crew can really get second. And then, like, obviously, CLG has some faith there, and Fnatic is going to get really tested in their group to see if they actually are a top 4 team.
And that's my second question. How actually do you think Europe itself fared throughout the group draw?
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic is going to get really tested, right? And then H2K, I don't really see them have much of a chance, but in the group, we do get to see Faker versus Pawn and versus Brew again. So Korean mid laners up there, going to be a really exciting group. So. Origin, I don't see much hope against LGD and KT Rolster, but maybe they can pull an upset.
All right, well, Fragen, thank you very much for the insight and again joining us. Now we are going to send it back over to Shocks and our analysts for C&D.
I can't help but think that Fragen actually has a big smirk on his face talking about the European teams and their chances. And there we have, of course, H2K in Group C. Let's dive into that one. SK Telecom, H2K, EDG, and the Bangkok Titans. Let's start maybe with H2K and that European team. They are the second seed coming out of Europe, but the expectations weren't that high to begin with, and this might be a very tough group to get out of, Fisho.
Tough, impossible.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
you can say this is 2 out of the 3 best teams in the world in the top of the group, and then we have H2K now, and of course the Bangkok Titans coming in. Almost impossible group for them. H2K as well is a team who has struggled fairly recently coming into this year. They got the second seed, obviously, by getting the most championship points. But Origin was a better team than they were by the end of the split.
Talk about a hard group for H2K. They weren't ever finishing in the top 2 in the European LCS, and now they have to play the #1 team from Korea. And before a playoff collapse, what was supposed to be a shoo-in for the #1 team in China, probably not finishing top 2 if they couldn't do it in Europe.
Well, the thing about EDG is, if we pick it up from there, is the fact that they did have that mini collapse at the end of the season. And then they played with Amazing J when they made the run through the gauntlet. So I think that there are some question marks around this team about how good they are. Everyone knows they're really, really good, right? But can they win it still, I think, is the biggest question. So looking at this group, we get to see the rematch against SKT in the group draw. I think that will tell us a lot about the relative strength of this Chinese side.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw EDG, MSI, of course, beating SKT. One of the reasons was they could handle FLICKR in the mid lane. They had some counter picks ready for his LeBlanc and so on. They clearly had a good strategy facing SKT, and I think they match up really well against them because they are so stacked in this lineup. They can duel Marin and FLICKR and so on in the early game with these strong players.
And they also play their style. So who they play against doesn't actually really affect EDG because they always like to play a similar style. They like to group up Mako, they like to group up Clearlove. There's 2 people that they're able to get their lanes really snowballing, and they're coached incredibly well. The pick ban phase is still an issue for this team and it actually has been all season long. Even MSI, they had pick ban issues. So I think that they will continue to maybe have some hiccups, but you would expect them to perform reasonably well.
Yeah, one thing I like about this is since SKT and EDG are in the same group, probably 2 of the favorites to win Worlds, if they both make it out of the groups, they can't play each other again until the final. So this may actually be just kind of a couple finals previews we get to see.
I'm just a little bit concerned for, let's say, the team's getting the first seed. Because you would normally say, okay, you get first seed in a group, perfect for your quarterfinal. You can only get the second seeds. You should dodge around the best team. And here's EDG or SKT. There you go. Enjoy your quarterfinal.
Well, something super exciting we might have overlooked in this group. We have Pawn, we have Ryu, we have FLICKR, and we have G4 from the Bangkok Titans as well. This is a pretty stacked mid lane group.
He's going to have fun.
Yep.
That's for sure. Probably can learn quite a lot. I mean, he was a very strong mid lane against Chiefs, at least. I mean, you know.
Well, the thing about G4 is he doesn't play like other mid laners. This guy will never team fight. He just split pushes all day. Like after 25 minutes, he sits in the bottom lane and just never regroups. And he plays very unorthodox picks. Thinks Aurelia, like he was still playing Zed. He still plays things like Jarvan in the mid lane. G4 is a solid player. Is he as good as the other mid laners? Definitely not. But I think that this will be. There's a lot of history in this group. I mean, FLICKR versus Ryu, Pawn versus FLICKR.
Pawn versus FLICKR, yeah. Just the subtle trash talk Pawn gives FLICKR every time he wins an event of some kind.
Sneak it in there.
I mean, he has beaten FLICKR as a team, but he takes some credit for it.
H2K also said when they qualified, if Ryu gets to face FLICKR, they will first pick Zed. So we got to see now. Well, they will have one game on blue side. If that first pick Zed comes in,
Riven.
He will take the Riven.
Hey, they didn't guarantee an outcome, okay? He just said he's going to pick a champion.
That's going to happen. That's obviously a big matchup for Ryu himself. He really wanted to go to Worlds. That's why he came to Europe. He felt like, okay, he could join a top team, or he could make a top team with H2K and go to Worlds. Fight FLICKR one more time. Now he gets some other great mid laners in the mix as well.
Well, in terms of clear-cut groups, we maybe said in Group A some things could happen to CLG, but this one seems to be very, very clear-cut.
Yeah, as far as who we think the top 2 teams are, now the ordering of SKT and EDG I think is up for some pretty heavy debate, right? As far as this group things, I think SKT will take it. 21 Korean starters went to China at the very start of this year, and that gutted a bunch of Korean teams. But I feel like the team that was untouched by that was SKT, which is why they've been so dominant in that region, as well as having FLICKR, as well as improving throughout the year. And I think, honestly, with more consistency in their lineup with Bengi and FLICKR and the meta rolling back in towards their favor, I think they can take down EDG this time around.
To me, this is the kind of game, you know, it goes 1-1 because EDG,
then they play tiebreaker. You got to
Sure, that's true. Okay, fine, they get a tiebreaker. But I mean, EDG in the playoffs will lose to SKT. But EDG in the regionals where they look to really bounce back, they look strong once again, and at the MSI performance again, I feel like this team, what SKT does so well is they skirmish so well in the early game where other teams can handle FLICKR, they can handle Marin, and Bengi provides a lot of pressure for both of them around the soul lanes. EDG can match it. And that's my concern for SKT, because then also you have depth for these late game team fights coming in. And Mako, in my opinion, is a better support than Wolf. At least he's more stable. Wolf tends to struggle a little bit under pressure.
Mako's a better support than Wolf. We saw that at MSI.
Exactly. He took basically the champs away from him. He outplayed him. That's going to be in favor of EDG. Is it enough to win? Almost impossible.
Say it. Just say it. Jake, I mean, you.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. SKT is the best team in the world, and they won't beat EDG. EDG will come out of this group number 1. If they play any other team, I think SKT is very, very good right now. I think they can beat LGD, but I think EDG just have something over them. I don't know what it is. After watching MSI, I think that Aaron's figured it out and Pawn's figured it out, and they seem to have a winning recipe.
Fisher?
EDG takes it.
Number 1 seed?
Yeah, SKT number 1 seed. I do think when we're mentioning the Deft versus Bang matchup, I think Bang is just criminally underrated. This dude is the best player in Korean solo queue consistently, and he outplays the crap out of people when given the opportunity. And just because he's on a team with FLICKR and a bunch of other superstars does not detract from his skill in my
Bang is really good. Deft and Mako is better than Bang and Wolf.
I agree.
We will see it. We will see in 3 weeks, actually.
Yeah.
Very exciting. That's it for Group C. We're going to see what all of you guys have to say there about Groups C and D at Inappropriate80 tweeted, oh my God, Ryu versus FLICKR. Not just that. All these mid lanes, we've touched on it already.
No, Ryu versus FLICKR.
Okay, that's it.
That's basically what we're going to look at.
Can we do an honorary blind pick game at both plays ahead?
We'll see you in 3 weeks. The second tweet is at Purple Ferret said, Group D, Group of Death. Confirmed. So let's dive straight into it. LGD Gaming, KT Rolster, TSM, and Origin. So maybe I'd agree for the first half of it, but I think that no, just kidding. The combination of the teams and their strengths and experience in it definitely can be a group of death.
Yes, I would maybe argue Group B is a little bit closer in that sense, and multiple teams can make it out. I mean, this heavy favorites LGD for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
And then KT Rolster as well. We have to put them up there as the second seed. Of course, had a strong performance, not against SKT, but at least in the playoffs and the run towards playoffs. They started looking better and better with Peekaboo, Score roaming together. Team Solomid and Origin. I mean, I think they're good teams, but this group is just going to be so difficult for them to do anything in.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, let's take a look at the relative strength at the top of it. LGD just looked phenomenal at the end of last split, and they've got strength all over the map, and they've got Flame sitting on the bench. So when you can afford to do that to one of the better top laners in the world, it's just a very big credit to the rest of your team. Acorn's playing fantastically. First person to pull out the competitive Fiora, looked very good on that specific champion. They've got Godvi, they've got ImpYL. TBQ is arguably the weakness of it, and then when you look at the relative strength of junglers in this competition, you probably don't even say it's a weakness at this point. So I think that LGD are probably going to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I think Imp, if he's able to win this World Championship, would challenge FLICKR for title of the best player in the world, depending on how he plays throughout this one. He had just tremendous performances throughout all of the playoffs. You're banning 2 or 3 AD carries, which is strange because the drop-off between his best AD carry and his second best AD carry still means he carries the game. So
you can't let him get Kalista, you can't let him get Kog'Maw, then he just gets
any AD carry. Don't give him Twitch.
But
if you're on Western team, don't let him play Twitch.
And then it makes Lulu a permanent ban as well, because Acorn plays it in the top lane, doesn't take away from the assassination potential, and it just teams up so well.
So basically, don't give anyone on LGD any champion at all.
Yes.
All right, so let's move on then to the second seed, which is what the discussion seems to be about for you guys. And if you look a little bit deeper into it, I feel like there's some hidden things in here. If Origin, with all their experience, does step up absolutely to the plate, they can contest it.
I think there are definitely 2 clear favorites, as we mentioned, but I think...
2?
2 clear favorites in this group, LGD and KT Rolster.
Yeah.
And I think Team Solomid and Origin are not completely counted out.
Yep.
So yes, TSM had some severe struggles at MSI and in the summer split where they had their lowest regular season finish in the history of the team. But if we think about the way TSM boot camps historically, ever since they've been a team, whenever they have a long amount of time to prepare for a tournament, they always come at it stronger. Loco Doco as well has a better Korean network than pretty much any of the other Western teams scrimming in Korea. So if a team is going to be vastly improved coming into Worlds, it will be TSM. But there's obviously no guarantees.
Yeah, Origin also joined the bootcamp in Korea fairly late. Arrived just a few days ago, I believe, started practicing, so we don't really know how well they're doing. But if you look at the 2 teams against each other, it's kind of funny how Team Solomid always, of course, is so much about Bjergsen in this mid lane here. We see Centurion trying gank for him. Origin is the opposite. You never gank for Pekka in the mid lane. He sits on farms, he scales up to late game. It's all about playing the side lanes. It's about Mythy and amazing roaming together, which I think is something Origin will have that is way better than what Team Solomid is bringing, because Santorin and Lost Boy, we haven't seen that synergy really between them, so that's heavily in favor of Origin.
I completely agree with that, but there's always that window. If you do isolate the mid lane, then Bjergsen just completely takes over. So I think that, 8 times, maybe even 7 to 8 times out of 10, it certainly goes in that roaming duo support and jungle, but every now and again, Bjergsen's just going to be able to step in.
Yeah, and I think this season more than any has been about the jungle and the support synergizing and roaming together, which is, I think, one of the big things that contributed to TSM's drop-off in the summer split is because Lost Boy and Santorin just weren't working together well. And one of the big reasons KT Rolster could make their resurgence is because Peekaboo and Score had such great synergy. The same can be said about Origin when they nearly took down Fnatic in the playoffs. It was largely due to Amazing and Mythy roaming around. So that's a really big player in this group that we have to pay attention to.
And I think Origin was one of those teams that when Fnatic was playing very well, were able to really stretch Fnatic. And when I watched that series, I was definitely impressed with how they were drafting and how they were able to execute on specific game plans, especially if you look back onto their Gangplank game. So I think that that's going to be one of the teams that, at least strategically, because of all the experienced players, will be able to take it to the likes of the KTs and maybe even maybe not LGD, on a strategic level, not on a gameplay level, but coming into a game with a clear win condition is what I'm trying to say.
I do think they match up well against KT Rolster because of Mythy and Amazing together. And I think Soas in that top lane, a guy who then went out of the LCS to obviously play with Origin in the challenger scene, got a lot of flack from the community. He returns, and he's honestly been looking absolutely fantastic up in the top lane. He beat Huni in the final over multiple games.
With Gangplank.
With Gangplank.
He was by far the first person on the Gangplank.
He was, and he was the best at the time now. GPM and so on will challenge him for that one. But Origin do have some good setups here to try and match what KT Rolster likes to do with Peekaboo, with Score up there, try and counter them in the early game, because that is a team. While they do team fight really well, they often rely on that early game to get the lead, to start snowballing, and then they team fight so well later.
But is Soas better than Someday? Like, that's a big question. You can say that he was able to take it up there in the top lane, but Someday is a very experienced top lane.
I don't think he'll get
and
destroyed.
He likes to play a similar style.
Yeah, Someday had more MVP points than FLICKR. Obviously, EasyHoon stole like 500 MVP points from FLICKR because he started more games, but this is the MVP of the LCK in this group in the top lane, in a meta where top lane carrying is highly encouraged. So then
he will beat Soas. That's
the scary part for both TSM and Origin in this group. Honestly, having to play against Someday.
I know who will be receiving a mad tweet from Soas. Did I invite you suspicious?
Hey, I mean, Soas always likes to tweet if I say something wrong about him, but I love Soas. I think he's a fantastic top laner, but I think Someday is better.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. There's all these players that are really good players, right? But then you're going up against the best in the world. And when you look at Sunday, for a carry top laner, I don't even know if you can look past him in the competition, let alone in the group.
Yeah, it's Worlds. Dyrus is at his 5th World
it's
Championship.
My line.
Hey.
It's Worlds.
Man.
But it's the 5th World Championship for Dyrus, and he's up against almost the stiffest competition he's ever had to face.
Time to spam Darius.
Time to step up for him. So just to wrap up Group D for you guys, LGD clear-cut favorite, and then KT for all of you, second?
KT.
LGD KT.
Yeah.
Well, that is unanimous for that group as well, and that is it. You've heard what our experts had to say in their forecast, who will make it out of the group stage, but you can still chime in as well. Beginning tomorrow, you can play the World Championship Pick'em Challenge and predict how the teams will perform at Worlds. There's some very cool prizes involved as well, so head over to pick'em.lolesports.com where you can get all of the details and play. And that wraps things up for our group analysis. The next time we will see you will be at the start of the 2015 League of Legends World Championship. Be sure to tune into a special Paris edition of Primetime League on September 30th, followed by the kickoff of the group stage on October 1st. And for myself, the entire broadcast team, thank you so much for tuning in, as well as a thank you to our special guest that assisted at the draw, and to everyone watching as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in Paris. Au revoir.